is up, Cards Chat Poker people? I am excited to bring you back another Play and Explain. This one's actually going to be a real-time one. I've done these a couple times in the past, but it's been a little bit, I think. So yeah, I'm in this WSOP Nevada Online Circuit main event. It's a $525 entry, $200,000 guarantee. You're going to see my whole cards. This is not real time for you, obviously. This will be after the fact, but it's real time for me. And so what that'll allow us to do is to just go over hands as I'm thinking about them as they're coming up. And we'll probably skip over some of the kind of boring hands, but hopefully you'll get a taste of what's going through my mind while I'm playing in one of these real events with my own money. And yeah, you'll kind of see kind of how that goes. And if I manage to make some sort of a deep run, you'll get a flavor for how that changes over the course of this event. Like I said, I'll definitely be skipping out on a bunch of the just hands where nothing really happens. I'll go silent and I'll cut out the periods of silence so you don't hear like this right now when I have like literally nothing going on and it's basically dead time. You'll get to skip that. You'll get to time travel through it. I have to sit here and play it, but for you, it'll be just a moment. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into some of these interesting hands. And comment down below letting me know what you thought about the hands I played. Were there any you would have played differently? And if you like this format, better or worse than kind of like the post reviews. And then lastly, do you like this face cam following thing, or is it distracting? Because I like it. For me, it's nice. I can wiggle around in my chair and my camera still follows me. But if it's too weird and distracting, I'd like to hear that from you guys. So yeah, let me know about all that in the comments down below. And as always, remember, I have a Ask Me Anything thread on the CardsChat Poker forum. I believe it'll be linked down below, but you should be able to search for it on the forums over at cardschat.com as well. If you're not a member there already, strongly recommend signing up, getting active, and letting them know that I sent you there. So yeah, let's get into these hands. And actually, luckily, as I'm talking, I get to open it up with Ace King suited here. We are inside the antes, but we're quite deep, so I'm going to be opening to 2.5-ish X here. I could probably go even bigger, but I think this is a good size. We faced a 3-bet, and I haven't gotten the chance to finish writing the full note on this player, but yeah, they are kind of getting after it. They've been really messing around, so I think I'm going to 4-bet and just plan to get this in. It's not like a slam dunk against every player type, but they've just really been going hard, so I think that this is going to be fine. And I'm just going to choose a big size so that they might be incentivized to do this. Now, obviously, weak players can still show up with hands too. They can have big hands like Ace King suited that might just run us down. That's really gross. But at the same time, I've seen this guy all in with the same stack size and Jack 8 suited. So it's like, you know, at the end of the day, how unlucky do we have to be for this to, you know, not be an all-in against this player type? Unfortunately, we got about that unlucky. But sometimes you're going to play these circuit events and weird stuff's going to happen and you're just going to get super unlucky. And the reality is, like, there's multiple rebuys in this thing. I could enter it 4 times if I would like. So I can't really just get off my game because I lose the first big hand that I play. It's unfortunate, but this player's still at the table. There's still opportunity here. It's a little annoying that we can't cover him, but yeah, we're going to do our best to shake it off. Hopefully get into some good situations, maybe just double up and not have to rebuy, but I'm ready to rebuy at a moment's notice nonetheless. All right, so in this hand, we're limping blind versus the same opponent who we just, yeah. So anyway, we have Queen 10 here, decide to limp in, they check. I'm going to check this board. Probably favors my range, but with second pair, I think it's a good spot to check. Going to toss in a bet now, and just planning a value from basically a 9 from any Jack or 10x sort of hand. Any flush draws that don't fit flop, although there probably aren't that many. And worse, Queen X as well will not be an inconsequential part of his range. Also, I'm sorry, I have this sort of tendency of saying his range. It's likely it's a him, but it might not be. So I'll just try to say their range if I can remember. Plenty of women in poker and some pretty successful women in poker, even on this website as well, specifically, who, yeah, I think like one of the top ranked players, Pollux, as a woman. So yeah, respect. But anyway, we're going to try to get after here. As you can see, nothing much has happened in the meantime. We still just have this like 20 to 30 big blind stack. Gonna try to find a way to stuff it in there, hopefully ahead if we can. All right, here, so we pick up Jack 9 suited now. Kind of annoying that we're short, but this is still going to be an open most of the time. And yeah, I mean, if we get 3-bet, it was probably just going to be a fold off this stack depth. But if they 3-bet small, maybe we could peel. But yeah, usually just play a hand against one of the blinds and sometimes against the button. And they're tanking. Big blind defense, and we actually get to flop top 2 here, which is pretty sick. On a board like this, I think that most of the time we're going to want to bet a little bit bigger with the parts of our range that do bet. That also makes it a lot easier for me to get it in with my hand. I think I'm going to go for something like a 2/3-ish sort of size ballpark. And there are just a lot of hands that have some equity that we don't mind folding out anyway. Maybe with top 2, it's better to go smaller just because we block so many like top pair and second pair holdings, but we're also okay taking this down. That's not like a bad result by any means. We only have, but blinds went up, so we don't have a ton of bigs. It's like 25-ish. There's another caller in there. So yeah, I think we just jam. I don't really love jamming because I feel like people fold too much to these spots. So we like don't get to double as frequently, but at the same time, queens is pretty vulnerable and it's probably just too good of a result to want to instead like induce by 3-betting small. We definitely don't want to flat. I think aces we could flat some, kings maybe we could flat some kind of thing. This spot's pretty interesting too. This could be an okay just jam or an okay call. It's a hijack opener, so I kind of like jam. Again, it's probably technically a little wide, but I actually don't think that the button in this spot will have as many traps as maybe theory would dictate. So I'm going to go for it. It's a hair under 30 bigs. We should have a good amount of fold equity still against these stack sizes. Well, against the opener for sure. That's unfortunate. They were trapping. We flopped pretty well. That's a really bad turn though. And most likely we're out here. We are. The deceptive making a pair, but it's no good. Unfortunate, but yeah, let's move on to the next one. Definitely rebuying. This table seems pretty soft overall, so really no reason not to rebuy and get in there. Good luck us on this bullet. All right, here we're going to be opening up the ace queen off. Again, these depths we can be opening a little bit over 2 big blinds. I'll just go 2.2 for simplicity here. Just the big blind defends, and we get a pretty okay board for our range. Monotone is kind of weird. Very strange that he's leading. I think this is often indicative of some kind of hand with value that doesn't want me to check back. So I think we just peel with ace high and the second nut flush draw. He could also have some just single ace of hearts holdings that are kind of bluffing. The check is definitely, I mean, it could still be the top pair holdings. It could still be the ace high holdings. I think that we just bet here, probably small, pay for showdown, and yeah, just pretty much like charge the ace high holdings that have the ace of hearts a little bit here. And we don't ever really have to lose a ton. Gonna go for 1250. Probably could go even smaller, but I don't want to give him like an insane price to continue or make it look so weak that he's like always check raising with bluffs. This might incentivize him more to call with just ace high and the ace of hearts. And we just get the fold, which is really interesting. I'm not really sure what kind of holding that might be. Could be like some just kind of gut shot on the flop without a heart. Just hoping to get it through. Not really sure, but nice to take one down nonetheless, finally. So we defend the small blind here to a single raise. Cutoff opener. Unfortunately, we don't connect with this board at all. Not even a diamond, so we'll probably just have to check fold to any sort of reasonable size. Bigger size for sure we'll be folding. Easy open here, going to be a little bit bigger from the button, but we just take it down. All right, so defend big blind here. Face a bet, and obviously with bottom pair and a backdoor flush draw, we are not going anywhere here. Going to have to continue, even though half pot sizing is not super fun to face. Can probably just fold to reasonably sized second barrels, even though they're in late position. It's just like most players are not finding enough double barrels as bluffs here. And the ones who are will find generally enough triples. And so that's going to make it really tough to continue here. So just going to fold. Here we're going to go for 3 bets with the 7-6 suited. Obviously, this is in the bluff part of our range. It doesn't need to be 100% frequency, but I'm going to go for it this time. Do get peeled. Ace King 8 board is definitely good for the 3-better. Although at these depths, I think it's reasonable for the opponent to trap some pretty good hands. Definitely want to go for a bet here. I'm thinking a small size is perfectly fine. The SPR is small. So if we want to go for like any sort of multi-street hand here, this one makes sense. I think like around 15% pot is going to be really reasonable to set up like a 3-street sort of bluff. I think with this hand, one and done is like okay. Double barreling is okay. It's going to be a mandatory double barrel on certain cards. This one is probably not one of them just because our opponent improves to ace queen 2 pair, king queen 2 pair, pretty non-zero amount. And we don't pick up equity. So like that's a little attractive to maybe bluff, but I'm just going to basically give up, I think. I could also check back hands like ace jack, ace 10 here that may not be able to get 3 streets of value anyway. I mean, this bet is unfortunate, but I don't think we can do a whole lot against it. Raising seems pretty suicidal. Once we check back turn, we're not repping most of the strongest hands in our range, so I'm just going to fold. All right, so we're going to open it up here with pocket eights. Not too much has happened in the meantime. Lost a couple small pots, I guess. I'm not sure. I don't remember if those made it into the cut or not in terms of me talking. Another not so great flop. This will be a high frequency check board anyway, I believe. So definitely this hand is going to be a good one to check. We don't get a ton of protection by betting. We don't get a ton of value from worse. Check back is good. Turn card is good. I think we still want to check though. Player has a lot of jack X in range still, small pocket pairs still, and we just like it's kind of way ahead, way behind in the sense that when we are ahead, they don't have a ton of equity. River card is nice. Obviously, it's good to make a boat once he checks back, but it's just like we don't get all that much value anyway. So I think a small to medium sized bet is in order here, and if he's ever slow playing something and raises, then great, but that seems pretty unlikely. Maybe we can get him to raise as a bluff sometimes if he perceives weakness, like thinks we have something like 9s or 10s, queens or kings, but more often than not, we're just trying to target like a jack or a pocket pair here. We do get called, and looks like we got super lucky. They actually had the last 8 in the deck. All right, we're going to defend the ace 9 off in the big blind here. Flop and ace, obviously this is good news, but not exactly a hand we want to play for stacks with, but not a hand we're going to be folding. 5 is not inherently a particularly good or bad card. They shouldn't really have too much 5x in range. Man, they're going to make us play for it all, I think. Folding now seems a little bit out of the question. We're now chopping with every worse ace X, and I don't think they would probably bet a worse ace X for value now. Really nice that they just check back. Usually means we're either chopping or they're just giving up. Oh, they actually ran into a pair, so kind of lucky. They might have barreled it off otherwise, and that would have been a really tough spot. Depending on the card, we might not have folded, but yeah, nice one to pick back up. We're actually very close to starting stack now, which is good to see. And yeah, hopefully we can keep it rolling here. We're gonna peel, even though big blind has like a jammable stack and we'd have to fold. They have a lot of hands that'll still just check back here, at least in theory, and now we can just fold. Here we open it up with the ace 8 off in the hijack, pretty much bottom of range. Get defended by the big blind, flop ourselves second pair. I'll be checking this back. Pretty good turn, all things considered. You can maybe go for a bet on turn, check on river, or if they bet, I will definitely be peeling at least one street. They check, so I think somewhere in the range of a third to half pot is pretty reasonable here. So that's what I'm going to go for. And obviously, if they just fold, that's fine. We can get certain like single overcard holdings to fold, and that's not that bad. Whereas every pair is gonna for sure call. And then river, I don't think the opponent should have a lot of 10x, so it's actually a pretty clean river for us to consider betting ourselves again for value. Because yeah, I mean they don't lead river or anything. Like yeah, they have a lot of missed draws, but they also have a lot of like 7x, 8x. Even some hands like 5-6 that now improve to a pair. It's gonna be hard to put us on a value hand, I think. So I think just going for like half to 2/3 looks pretty good to me here. And just try to get peeled by a pair. Yeah, I like 2/3. It looks pretty bluffy, I think. Like I don't want to risk a massive part of my stack, but you know, there's a good amount in the pot out there. We'll see what he does though. All right, just getting the fold. Not a bad result by any stretch. All right, so a bit of an awkward multi-way defend here. We get bailed out, flopping trips. Never going to be leading into this pot multi-way, so I'm just going to be checking range. Let's see what happens here. Hopefully we can get someone to bet. Bet of half pot is quite large. I don't think we're really going to check raise any hands on this board. It's just so hard to have bluffs, I think, out of the big blind. So barring like a raise in front of us, in which case we'd maybe just get it in, hope to get it in against king, not king five, something like 6-5, 5-4. We're just going to peel and hope that we can sort of get it done, get some more bets in later. This is a good card, obviously, unless they have a 5. I guess it brings in 6-5, which would be bad, but now we have additional backup equity against some holdings. Still going to check. I guess it's not a great card overall. Things like 8-9 do come in, but there should only be 4 combos of 8-9 out there. Still for sure going to be getting this in. I think the question now is the board wet enough that we want to just stick the money in now? I think it's reasonable to. We lose to hands like pocket 7s, pocket 6s, 6-5 suited, 9-8 suited, but we'll come back in if that happens. And I'm going to time bank to make it seem like, like we're not just obviously sticking it in, and hopefully we don't get coolered here. Good luck us. They didn't snap, so that's usually good. Still tanking. I mean, if we're losing at this point, it's just like a insane slow play. Okay, I was like, it's an insane knit roll if we're somehow if we're not good here. So finally, we get our first real double to a significantly above starting stack, sort of holding. Tough spot there in there. I mean, it's maybe a slight overplay of a weak top pair, arguably multi-way, but once they do stick in the turn bet, it's definitely not easy. It's a tough one to get away from. Not even sure if they should be getting away. They do have a gutter. But the problem, I think, with that hand is big blind just has a lot of 5x in range. Most suited 5x's in range for most players at this point. So nice to be chipping up. We now move into probably slightly above average territory. Looks like average 24K with like 1.5 times that. So yeah, not a bad spot to be in at all. Let's go for a squeeze here. I like in the neighborhood of like 34, 3,500. This player might not believe us as much, but I think that they might be opening a little bit wide in this spot, given that they just lost a hand. We'll have to see if that ends up holding true here, but yeah, we get the fold through, and now we just have to get it through the second player, who will call with a lot of like pocket pairs and stuff, but we're just going to go ahead and flop top 2. So we really have a lock on this board, but there are flush draws available. So I think this is one where we're going to go for a pretty normal continuation size, even a little bit bigger than normal, I think would be reasonable. See if we can cool off an ace here. There are also a good amount of ace-x holdings that they can have. They snap call, which I don't think is going to be like a pocket pair under a 10 too often. So I think we just have to set up to try to go for gold here. 6,500 would leave 20K on the river and like a 27K pot or something. So I think that's super reasonable. Actually less, because he only has 24. Yeah, I like this, or even a little bit of a smaller size. I think this size is fine, and hopefully we don't get cooled off here. Obviously deuces is in range. 10s could be in range, but that's very unlikely. Bad river. We do lose to ace 9 now. We lose to flushes now. If he lead jams, it's really gross. If he leads small, it's an easy call because maybe he's setting his price with an ace. The only good thing is, yikes. This size is really annoying. I mean, I think it's a flush a lot, and the way that we ourselves sized it each street, they're definitely continuing with most of their flush draws. The question is, how many combos do they have here versus like, do they ever bluff? And it's weird that they went for half pot instead of just going all in. Man, this is tough. I mean, this could even be a hand like ace king, ace queen, that it thinks that we'll check back a lot. I don't really know. I think people are just a little too out there here. I think they have enough hands. We just only need to be good 25% of the time. Sorry, is that no 33% of the time? No, we're getting 3-1. Yeah, so 25% of the time. It's tough. It's tough. If this is the one hand we get cooled off with, I think that that's okay. We do have a lot of other holdings. Wow, And this is why you don't fold like near the top of your range. Like you just don't know what people can have. The fact that he didn't go all in was a little weird. You know, I maybe he's trying to look stronger. Maybe he's just trying to preserve a few big blinds. I don't know what the plan was there, but really, really nice to take that one down. He should obviously not have 4-3 suited in range. So it's really nice. I did have the tag displaying that he's maybe a little out of line. So that kind of helped. But it's still not easy getting into those sorts of spots. So lucky there. And now we actually move into almost a chip lead sort of spot here, which is pretty cool. All right, so we flat ace jack off here against an open from the low jack. Obviously flop is quite good. There's another player in the hand. We need a little bit of protection perhaps, but not a ton when we have an overcard along with the jack. But it's also easy to cooler a worse jack if we start betting now. So I think we're gonna just put a small bet in. We can also get peeled by pocket pairs. The raise is not great. I mean, the raise could easily be a jack, but it's also going to be sets quite a bit. I'm trying to think if there's ever a reason to rip it in versus to just call. There's just not a lot of hands that have a lot of equity. So if he has a random bluff like 5-6, ace-4, ace-5, like there's only really a few bad cards. Yeah, I think we're just peeling. We look like we can that's a really good card. It just really decreases the chances that we're getting stone coolered here. There's only one combo of pocket threes now, 3 combos of deuces. They shouldn't have jack deuce, jack 3, deuce 3. If they ever have a bluff, okay, well, the river's not great. I mean, they could raise flop, check back the turn with something that had a queen in it, like a queen 10 sort of hand as a bluff. They also could have raised flop with queen jack for value and checked back turn. More than likely he's just giving up. And I don't think this is like a lot of worse pocket pairs or worse jack X now. So I think we just check, maybe snipe off a bluff if he decides to continue. But yeah, it's gonna be unfortunate if we don't have the best hand here. This looks a lot like a jack that we beat or just a queen that's targeting us, but we still probably just have to call. Yeah, that's super unfortunate. Like we just read the situation stone correct, but we still just have to lose like 7K or 8K or whatever it is we lost there. I mean, at the end of the day, poker's like about these really thin edges where you're going to sometimes just get totally screwed. And I mean, I'm just glad he didn't have more chips, didn't bet turn. Like I'm supposed to stack him like there most of the time, but when I don't, I'm usually supposed to also double him. So the fact that neither of those happened and I just lost like a slightly smaller pot than I could have is good, I guess. Maybe in some hyper exploit we could have folded river, but I think that's probably reaching pretty far. And like if he ever just has king 10, he's just supposed to make the same bet. And you know, maybe people don't have enough bluffs on flop, period, end of sentence. But at the end of the day, you know, you saw the previous hand where I sniped off a bluff in a spot where I didn't think there would be that many bluffs available. This one would be probably a spot that has more bluffs available and they just happen to have it. So a little unfortunate, but yeah, we're going to keep on trucking through. We're currently sitting 25th out of 275 left. Late red still running for probably a long time, I would guess. Yeah, still another 45 minutes. So we'll check back in occasionally as we get some hands and hopefully start spinning this back up again. All right, so just checking into this hand a little bit late. Sorry, was a little distracted by some messages, but this is an open from hijack. We 3-bet the cutoff. We chose to check back on this flop, and on turn they they just bet 2,500. I think that it's a very clear just call on turn. You could certainly argue betting flop some frequency. Once they check river, it's certainly tempting to go for a bet, try to get called by an 8, called by a pocket pair, but I think it's just difficult to rep a lot of bluffs. So I'm just going to happily check this back. They're also going to have a lot of hands like this that are just basically in pure give up mode and reopening the betting. I'm not saying we get check raised as a bluff too often, but it's fine to just check back and beat those hands since they're never going to call, and I'm not interested in bet calling the river against the river check raise. So nice little pickup there. We get a little bit back from the recent downturn. This hand pretty interesting. Thought it was going to be kind of a nothing hand, but then we rivered a boat. This hand, big blind is quite short. We opened, they defended, we bet one big blind on flop, they call, turn, check, check. And now river, we have to figure out what are we targeting? What are we getting value from? I think a king is very likely to bet river in their spot for some sort of small size. I think a jack probably won't slow play either. So we're targeting a pretty weak range. So I'm inclined to go for a pretty small size that doesn't make their stack feel threatened. If they ever are slow playing, they'll just get in their jack anyway. But yeah, it's kind of hard to get value from much, but I figured I would talk a little bit about that one since it got a little more interesting when we got lucky on the river. And so this spot's pretty interesting. We are around, what is this, a hair over 30 big blinds effective against the opener. There's also a caller who we're a lot deeper against. So that makes this a little bit awkward. It makes jamming not a great option. We'd have to be jamming 100 big blinds, so that doesn't really make a ton of sense. I do still like 3-betting, and the issue with 3-betting is that a lot of players won't perceive us to have any bluffs here, which is a good reason to go maybe a little on the smaller side to make it look like we could have more bluffs. This is viable. This looks like we could have a bluff for sure. And I still like 3-betting a little more than flatting, just on average. We get snap flatted, which is really interesting. I think most players probably don't slow play aces for a flat instantaneously. And we get not the best board in the world, a board I think that we should probably check a decent amount of a range, a decent percentage of the time. But jacks is actually one of our higher equity holdings because it has a gutter. It's like kind of a weird spot. I think that checking to check raise, get it in against Poker Master is reasonable. I think a small bet is also reasonable. Not this big. I think this is fine. I don't love it. Obviously, like a lot of sets are in range for probably both players. But if it were to go like jam call, then maybe we could consider folding. But blocking Jack 10 suited is really good. And this is going to happen a good amount as well, where they just both fold. Certainly not a bad outcome there by any stretch. We get to just pick up a few chips, essentially uncontested. And we're almost back in the top 10 here once again. Here we go for a 3-bet against an opener. We're quite deep, so this is a spot where we can sort of exert a good bit of pressure across multiple streets. They peel very quickly, usually indicative of a hand that would never 4-bet. That doesn't necessarily narrow their range too much when players would 4-bet only very few holdings. This hand is pretty junky. I'm just going to go for around a quarter pot size. There are a few sort of turn cards that are good to barrel on. A king is a good card. Like a 7 is one where we pick up equity, but their range does as well. It's really nice for this to just work as a one and done. On an ace, we can sort of like check back or bet, but we're probably not getting 3 streets with like a weak ace for value. So yeah, nice to just take that one down. And there are a lot of little pots like this that are going to happen. I'll probably breeze through more of them than talk about more of them, but it's nice to showcase them once in a while as well. All right, here we check big blind, and we will be stabbing one big blind, just trying to get them to fold out some equity. Here we'll check back. I don't think we can get like a lot of value out of this holding. There's just so many bad cards here. We check back and hope to beat a hand like king high or ace high and just get a sneaky little bit of one big blind of extra value there. So nice to pick that one up. This spot really interesting. It's opened by hijack. We flat cutoff. Small blind and big blind both call. And opponent bets flop for like 40%, which is a reasonably big size. We obviously turn a set, which is fantastic, but it's a flush completing card, straight completing card. Flushes and straights are in both players' ranges. So I don't think we want to polarize, but I think we can go for like this half-ish to 2/3 sort of size. We'll give them a little hint that we have 666 in our hand. That's pretty funny. Not intentional at all, but I'll do it for the memes. This is a fantastic card. Like if he has a queen, it's just going to be absolutely impossible for him to fold. If he has a flush, we're now winning. We're just running super good here. I'm actually like really tempted to just go for the overbet jam, but we're running out of time here, and I don't think that's going to work too often. I'm going to go for a smaller size that I think will be called more often. And we get snapped, which definitely makes me feel like I left value on the table here. He had the nut flush and doesn't raise. So it's like, yeah, from that specific hand, we obviously get way more value if we just overbet rip it. That puts us squarely into the lead for the first time. Very good feeling, but yeah, a little bit rough when you see that 23K behind that might have been going in if we went for it. I mean, it almost has to go in if we go for it. Like, you just can't put enough boats in our range to fold the nut flush even to that size. If I knew his hand, obviously I would go all in, but that's poker. You don't. And I actually thought that, like a non-zero amount of his flushes are just going to lead river anyway. So maybe miss some value there. Maybe I should have gone for a bigger size. It's a spot I'd like to look into further, but can't be too upset with the exact run out how it went. He didn't put us to a tough one on turn. If he had just check raised turn, we probably get all of it that way as well. But yeah, just a bit of a cooler. Unfortunate for him, very fortunate for me. Picking up queens here, facing an open off of a 23-ish big blind stack. There's also a flat from a 30, 35 big blind stack. Again, this is a tricky spot with queens. Like, if you jam, it can be a little tough to get called. If you go too small, it can be, you're kind of screwing yourself there in a different direction. I'm just going to pick the in-between size. It's hard to pick one that doesn't look super strong, but we do get peeled and flop top set. This poor Vienna Coupe guy just has no idea what's happening. I'm inclined to either bet like a big blind as an exploit or just check back. I think check back is probably going to be a little better as played. King is not a great card, as it looks like we have a king, sort of an ace-king type hand quite a bit here. It's tricky though. There are flush draws available now. I think going sort of small is pretty reasonable. We just have like a pretty strong range. We can have jacks and below as well. Like even pocket nines pre would not be a crazy hand to 3-bet get it in against a shorter stack. We do get peeled. It's not like the best card in the deck, but ace jack is the only real hand that comes in. I don't really think jack nine suited is too prevalent. The question is, can we get called by just a king for his stack? And I think the answer is probably yes. So I'm just going to go for it and hope he doesn't have ace jack. Yeah, we'll usually get a fold there. It's like, as lucky as we got to flop top set, you almost wish it was a different sort of board so that you're a little more likely to get paid, but no complaints here, of course. Wow, opening cutoff and flapping top and bottom against big blind on this kind of board is sort of the dream. Obviously, a lot of high equity holdings from our opponent. We can bet medium to big sizes here. I think both would be good. I'm just going to start with half pot. Seems like a size I would use with more hands in my range. If he check raises, we just probably put it in. We can even cool him off when he has hands like 8-6. Turn is pretty solid. I mean, 9-7's in range, 9-7 suited for sure, maybe 9-7 off as well, but there are more hands that didn't get there than hands that did, and on this board, there's just so many ways for hands to get there. We definitely want to keep betting. I think pot to possibly get it in on turn, or like very close to pot, that's a little too small, is going to be good. Excuse me, get it in on river. I think, yeah, like 80 to 100% pot is probably good here. So that's what I'm going to go for. I don't think he's going to fold just like any old jack as well. At least not yet. Maybe on rivers he can. If he check raise jams now, it's a little annoying just because slow playing on this board is kind of weird. Like, I don't think it's going to be that common, but it's definitely out there. Like, it's definitely a possibility. But if he jams, we won't be folding. We'll just be possibly losing a big one. I guess 7-4 suited is out there as well and won't fold flop to half pot. So I didn't really consider that, but that's a hand that's in there too. He's tanking quite a bit, so I'm not really sure if he's just deciding whether to go with a jack or not, or if he had like maybe a weaker draw and was considering going after it, or a weaker draw that then made bottom pair or something to that effect. We are now out of first place. Somebody surpassed us by like 5K, but still in really great position here, of course. All right, well, I managed to stop recording and then not record when I was talking through a hand, but won a medium-sized one with a bluff catcher, not a big pot, just second pair, called twice, and was able to hold on for dear life for just long enough and got it done. But yeah, it's 393 players, 218 rebuys. I had one of the rebuys myself, and so yep, we are not that close to the money. There's a little under 200 players left. And with that, we are basically 72 spots going to pay 200 away. No, 200 left. So feeling pretty good right now. And hopefully we can keep this going. All right, we defend big blind here. Got the same player that we just bluff caught against. Nice to flop top pair with some backdoor potential, but obviously it's still his board. He checks back, maybe indicative of being a little bit annoyed at the last hand, but could also just be a hand like queens through nines, some ace highs. They shouldn't have too much 8x in range, so I think that a medium-sized bet is going to operate pretty well here. This is, I guess, kind of on the small side, but between like 35-40% pot. They check, and I think this could be ace queen sometimes. I don't think it's going to be like, you know, a lot worse than that. Can still be pocket pairs. So I think we go for one more street, just trying to get paid by a pocket pair. If he floated ace queen, he gets there. Pocket queens is a small part of his range, and I don't think anyone will turn a queen into a bluff. So we just go for like a half pot size here, try to target his somewhat weak range, while also recognizing that we ourselves don't have a ton of value hands here. We have a good amount of 8x though, so we're fairly protected, I think. If he were to raise, I think it's just a fold. We have a 9, we block a ton of bluffs and don't block enough value. And we get it done, get the value, feels good. He actually calls us with ace jack high. Man, he's gotta be a little unhappy with me with how things are going. You love to see it. Things have been going well, can't complain, and still in the top 5 over here. So let's keep it rolling. Over 100 big blinds, man. It's not really a run yet, but it's starting to feel exciting. All right, this hand we 3-bet versus the hijack, and they call. I think on 10-9-3 we can have a good bit of checkbacks. I mean, we want some protection, but I think this hand is going to operate much better as a check back. We can also check back like some of our ace highs that don't want to bet and blow up the pot, maybe get check raised, struggle to get called by worse. This hand doesn't necessarily struggle to get called by worse, but there's still a lot of better hands in range. If you were to bet, we're definitely not folding to just one, even against a little bit of a bigger size. The size isn't like big by any means, so yeah, definitely continuing. This card is not fantastic, but we do have a lot of the ace highs with a diamond in range. I would think that this hand has some bit of showdown value, and opponents can also trap on these sorts of cards. So I'm sort of inclined to mostly check back and just try to beat random ace highs that don't want to bluff. But I think we lose to a 10 quite a bit, so that makes it kind of attractive to turn this hand into a bluff as well. Very torn. I think I'm going to go for it. I think it's just like very believable that we have it with the way the hand played out. We just have so much ace high. Ace queen, ace jack, ace king, all with the ace of diamonds are super reasonable. I bet a size where like I can't have queen jack for value. Obviously I have a flush or nothing. But like opponent's not going to put us on a lot of the hands like the hand that we have, probably as much as the ace highs with the diamonds. So nice to get that through. That's a really important one. Not so much because of the pot itself, but because we're risking 25K there to win 30K. If he calls and is good, obviously I'm stuck down to 100K. So that's like literally a 50K swing there in terms of my stack. It's nice to be in third, have the bluffs working, have the value working. We've mostly had value. So it's nice when those things are both clicking together. And King 7 suited in the cutoff is going to be an open as well. Let's see if this hand has anything interesting develop. And if not, we'll obviously move on to the next one. But Teddy Malkov is a strong player, so he's going to defend his big blind a lot. But this time we just get it through. So another nice one to just pick up there. All right, so we're 3-betting the same player again, which is always like a little bit interesting. Like what kind of dynamic are we developing here? I also raised the hand in between, but ace queen of diamonds too good here. If it's jammed behind us, it does get a little bit uncomfortable, depending on who it is. Probably would have to call off versus Teddy Malkov. But here we get to just play probably heads up against the opener. If they 4-bet, it's uncomfortable for sure, because players just don't really 4-bet enough, but we just get this one through. That's fine as well. Kind of funny. I keep like talking to see if this is going to develop into anything and nothing's really happened, but you never know. And yeah, we're just kind of chipping up once again, currently in second place, a little over 100 off the money. So getting there. All right, so nothing has happened really for a couple of hours. I've just been on a call and then doing some editing, but we've really just been chipping down for the most part. Nothing much to speak of in terms of interesting hands. We have since gotten inside the money. There are 58 players remaining, 72 paid. The pay jumps are all pretty small from here up until almost the final table. 1527 locked up, and this is a 525 buy-in. And then we don't even crack 2K until the final 18, which is final like 3 tables. And then we don't crack 5K until literally like 8th place. So yeah, it's going to be a long road still with over 50 players remaining. And yeah, I did get super lucky to chip up. I think that was a hand that got missed, where I just like made a straight in a 3-bet pot, and the guy went nuts with Jack Deuce offsuit, which was top pair, no kicker. He literally check raised jammed the river, which was pretty nutty. I had the stone nuts, so that was nice. I chipped way up to like 260K at peak. I haven't really won a pot since, so I've just been chipping down. Most recently, the small blind open jam 10 big blinds, I called off king 6, and I wasn't super happy about it, but yeah, at that stacked up, it's good enough. And he had ace 6, so even though I made trip 6s, it wasn't good enough. And yeah, now we're just kind of trying to be a little more selective with our spots. We can't really like bully anybody. We're actually essentially middle to lower part of the pack of our table. And we're hovering right around average now, actually, after being like top 5, basically, you know, the vast majority of the tournament, or not the vast majority, but like top 10, the majority of the tournament. And then like top 5 for a good portion of that, just was running really hot and cooled down basically. So yeah, gonna need some additional luck to final table this thing. We'll be checking back in as hands develop and doing some more editing on the side until they do. All right, so this is the sort of spot that makes or breaks you. This is hijack open, button 3 bets to 2.5x. I think he should be getting after it here, but do people actually get after it enough? Not clear, but he's on the button. So ace queen O, I think hold 4-bet jam is very attractive here. There's 50K almost out there for us to win to add to our less than 150K stack. I'll be sad when we get it in coolered here, but I think we just have to. There should be enough like ace jack and worse, pocket pairs, some hands that will fold, even king queens. We're just gonna go for it. It's annoying when, oh God, I was gonna say when every range is uncapped, and when we get snapped by London John, it's really not good news. Like he almost always has us crushed, I would say. Oh my God, ace one time. One time, give me an ace or a jack. Come on, man. That is so gross. Like, that's really nuts that if those hands were in a very slightly different order, I just like don't have to put the money in. That's what's really disgusting about poker. Like, just a very slight tweak. Like, literally, if my card is a jack with the ace, I'm not all in. Or if the big blind is in front of me, I'm in the big blind with ace queen, and the small blind 4 bets or rips it in, like, I don't go with ace queen. You know, I probably don't even go with ace king. So it's just like, man, poker's tough. I've gotten so close on these so many times. It's been a little demoralizing always having them in cash, but that's how tournaments go sometimes. Hopefully you guys found this useful or interesting or funny to watch me in pure agony here after chip leading most of the day. But yeah, I'm going to sign off here. This has been Matt Vaughn with CardsChat, and hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in another one soon.